everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a special guest. My colleague Alaric Miles is on my channel today. I'm really excited. She is a PhD student just like me, and she has an amazing podcast coming up. I will talk more about that at the end of this video. Make sure you check it out, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself.
Yeah, so just like Cindy said, my name is Alaric Miles. I am within the Texas Tech cohort with her in our PhD program. I am a fellow marriage and family therapist, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk about this great topic with Cindy. She's amazing.
So today we are going to talk about the topic of Asian and African American community solidarity. And I want to talk about how can we create this bond, how can we create more understanding in between the two communities. Because of the recent Asian hate crime, there's a lot of misconception. And I think even before this hate crime, there's a lot of stereotype and misunderstanding to our two community. There's like this kind of invisible tension in between. So I want to interview you with some questions, and I'm really excited to do this.
Let's get started.
So the first question that I'm curious, what are some of the assumptions or stereotype that Black community might have toward Asian? What do you think?
Yeah, so I first want to kind of start off by saying, like, whatever that I experienced throughout or within my community, I just want to let it be known that these are my experiences, right? And I would love for more input or more ideologies from other people within my community to kind of say what they feel within the comments, right? I think this is a growing area and an area to learn. But back to your question, kind of the assumptions or stereotypes that I heard would be the more typical ones that we all have heard within our communities, right? Now, with that being said, I don't think that I've ever heard people around me spew out those negative stereotypes, right? I think one of the main concerns that I've seen within my community growing up was just the factors of how Asian Americans are within our urban settings of communities, of communities. Whereas like if I go to my beauty salon or my hair salon, it's Asian owned, which is nothing wrong with it, but it's just the atmosphere when I walk in, a product that is for me. It doesn't seem like I'm welcome within that environment, right? Or if I think about the restaurants that are near me, right? It seems it's the same thing. Like you're in my neighborhood, but it seems like you really don't like me or something's off with me, right? You could always tell that there was something there or that tension like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But I don't really think that African Americans, at least in my experience, have a particular issue or negative assumptions about the Asian American population.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this invisible this invisible conflict or invisible tension in between community can come from a place of not knowing, can come from a place of lack of connection. And that's what we are doing here.
Yeah, it's connecting, right?
To try to talk about it and try to build a bond and see how can we improve this. Instead of division, we're trying to be part of the solution to create more cohesion there.
Right.
I love that. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts about the model minority label toward Asian American? How does that impacting the Black community? For those people who don't really know about the model minority label, it's created somewhere around World War II due to the financial and economic success of Asian community.
Right, yeah. So interestingly enough, the first time I ever heard about this minority label is in conversation with you, right? I did a little research, I Googled upon it, and I was like, oh, this is a stereotype that I have heard my whole life of that, like Asian Americans are smarter, they're more tech savvy, or just anything having to do with higher level understandings or things that I might not understand, right? So sometimes when I had saw the minority label in this way, I was like, oh yeah, that's true. That's what it feels like, right? But also now that I'm in a more growth set mind and I'm learning and I'm becoming this newer whomever, right? I now start to see that as, okay, well, that's a more positive association, right? But it still affects a certain group. But who put that on that group? Not those people, somebody else did, right? Just like the African American label is not as positive, right? We have a more negative one, but that's really my view of like, I don't think that label suits the Asian American population, right? Because who's to say that that's their whole identity? And even if that is a part of their identity, so what? Why does it have to be a label, right?
Exactly. And I can definitely see how damaging not only within the Asian community, like for example, let's take math. People are saying Asians are all good at math.
Yeah.
That's one of the model minority label. Because they're good at math, they can go to good school, they're doing well at school, then they can get a good job and they start being very successful in their life. And I am the outlier. I'm like so bad at math.
Yeah.
Where I am at in that situation, it's like I don't feel fit in, and that can create a lot of damaging for other minority population as well. Are they not hardworking enough? Are they lazy? Is this reflecting some negative label on other minority group? And that's really unfair.
Yeah, and I think to like kind of highlight small amount of like what you just said was right. Like in a way, that minority label, right, puts you guys at a space of privilege just a bit, right? Not saying that you're overly privileged or have white privilege, but it puts you in this space to where if it was me or you at a job, they'd probably go with the Asian American because of this assumption that they have of you. Exactly. It might not be true, but it's this assumption and this narrative they've created for all of us.
Yeah.
This majority group. So that's something key to like point out. Like it's damaging to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And we also discussed this earlier that movies such as Crazy Rich Asian or Bling Empire is creating like Asians are all successful, they're all rich, they don't really experience struggle or discrimination. But that's so not true. Research has shown that Asian Americans experience the biggest income inequality. And that's something that movie doesn't show. People don't really know. And people might be like, oh, I don't see you struggle because of the movie.
Yeah, and you bringing that up is something that I never had heard of, right? Until we talked about this. And that's one way within your question that if we just talk to each other, we'll know.
Yeah.
Right? We'll understand each other a little bit more.
I love that. I love that. So the next question that I have is, both Black and Asian community experience historical oppression. And at some time in between Black and Asian communities, seems like there's a lot of common and a lot of competition because of that history. So I wonder, what are some core values that growing up in your family or in your community that you think can be really helpful to create the unity instead of the division?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about my atmosphere growing up and the people that I hung around. It makes me smile because it's just so tender and it feels good, right? So I think about something for me and within my African American experience, some core values that I think we hold really close to us is, I like to say this is a core value, strength. Like we're really strong.
I love that.
We love to keep going. We love to keep moving. And another thing is like, I think we are some of the most hardworking people that I've ever met. I know growing up in my household, there was no slackers. It was like, you have to get this done. So I think hard work. So I said what? And then I think honesty. Lastly, I think being honest to your experience, honest to your commitments, just honest in general is what I would go with. Those three sound really tender to me. And of course, loving, tender, hilarious, anything else. But those three.
I agree.
Right?
You are. You perfectly represent those. I love that.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a lot of overlap. Like, especially a lot of minority community is not limited to Asian or Black community, like Latino or like some other Native American. A lot of people they are hard workers. They try really hard, but it doesn't mean like everyone can have, just like you said, because of some assumption or some label, it doesn't mean hardworking can have the same outcome. So I think it's really important to recognize that and talk about these issues to breach the unknown so we can be part of something better and create this solution.
Right, that comes into creating that solution, just identifying that we have some of the similar core values. Right? Just identifying that. It might not look the same for everybody, but we have those key things.
Exactly. Right. And hoping to turn that from competition into cohesion.
Unity. Putting it all together. How can we be? Right?
I love that. That. That leads to my last question. What are something we can do, you think, individual level or like a bigger system level that we can do to move toward being more bonded and support each other? And this question's coming out because of currently people are start focusing on anti-Asian hate crime. People are start saying, does this mean that Black Lives Matter it's not important anymore. No, I think that's a big misconception.
Yeah.
And what do you think what we can do to value, yes, we care about Black Lives Matter.
Right.
At the same time, this hate crime is scary. It's not okay.
Right. So I have a two-parter, right? I'm a big component in let's work on ourselves first and then help our neighbor. So I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement, we've been working on ourselves, so now we can help our neighbor, right? We still have a lot of things going on with us, but who's to say I can't take my time out to go on over to my Asian American brothers and sisters, right? How can I get over there to them to let them know that they're being heard and they're being seen, right? You know, I can only do so much with what I know. And if I'm experiencing something in my Black Lives Matter movement, I've seen how it looks. I've seen the type of oppression. I've seen what I want others to do for me when I'm in the moment. So how can I go over there and help them in what they need and learn how to be a supporter instead of a leader, right? Because sometimes in minority groups, we get caught up if we go visit other minority groups in leading or saying our experiences are the same when it's completely different, right? I'll never know how you feel to be discriminated upon in that way, right? Mm-hmm. I'm privileged in myself to be from a country that doesn't see me in the light or represent some of those hate crimes, right? They might not like me because of some other things, but I will never experience what you have to go through, right?
Yeah.
But I think that starts in that unity piece. And then I think secondly, just coming together, bonding, making friends like we are, right? You don't need to go out and purposely befriend an Asian American if you're Black. Like, you just can be friends, right?
Yeah.
And having these conversations. And I think for us as professionals, doing research, continuing these conversations in classes, taking it out to our communities. What you're doing right now is perfect, right? Taking it out to your fan base. Things of that nature. I think that can create unity for us if we just, and then lastly, just talking to one another. Being aware of each other's presence as well is very important and key. Because I think I started off when we talked about this of saying like, Black people really ain't checking for Asian Americans, which in my Ebonics language.
We're not checking either.
Right, which in my Ebonics language is like, we're just not seeing each other. And now that we can see each other and somebody opens that lens up, like, then we can talk, we can communicate. We just need to be seeing one another.
Exactly.
Right?
I have seen a lot of videos online, people coming together from a place of blaming, from a place of not understanding each other. But both groups experience so much, and I'm hoping we can start this conversation a lot more and create a place for us to have the conversation, to build a bond with each other and to try to understand each other, which is so important.
Yeah, you're right. What they want us to do as minorities is compete, right? We don't need to do that. We need to see above that and be together and help each other out. I think unity is all we need, right?
I love that.
I do too.
I am so grateful that you can be in my channel today.
Okay.
And please leave comments if there's anything you think you want us to talk more about, or if there's any reflection or something that we have a blind spot on you notice. Please let me know or let Alaric know. It's gonna be super helpful for us and build this connection and cohesion within the two community.
Yeah.
And lastly, I am so excited that Alaric is having her podcast. Woo-hoo! This is something really amazing. I'm gonna let her introduce. I'm like a big fan right now.
So Cindy has been one of those people that's on me, but I thank you. Okay, so what the podcast is called The Session for the Culture, by the Culture. I thought of this idea a long time ago. It pretty much just, it's for the African American community. It's a space where we can sit and we can talk about our experiences as it pertains to mental health. We so often don't have that space, so being able to create that space is something that I'm very excited about. I'm making my first announcement here about my guest. I'll have Miss Chelsea Hargraves on. If you don't know that name, you will know that name in the future. She's very brilliant, a master's student right now. She is a former PK, which is a preacher's kid. So what she has done is she's taken her knowledge in mental health and combined it with her knowledge of her religion with God. She made a company called Jewels of Jericho. So she's out in the community talking to younger Black people, older Black people, any Black people about how to tie in their faith with their mental health. And that's going to be our first conversation. And y'all tune in. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify.
I love that.
Yeah.
So me as a big fan need to know how often are you gonna upload the episode?
Yes, so as for now, I'm thinking maybe weekly, but I need more guests. So if you're out there watching and you're African American and you want to share your experience, come on over. Put it in the comments.
Yes.
All right, come on over, and I'd love to have you as a guest. It's not just for professionals, it's for any Black person of all walks of life. We want every voice needs to be heard.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited, and please make sure you check it out. I will put all the information as much as possible at the link, and you can go subscribe and go follow her. You can search Alaric Miles, then you can find her Spotify and Apple Podcasts, right?
Yes, and down below I'll give Cindy the crib like little hashtagies and stuff, right? So you can find it.
I am so excited. Again, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe this channel so we can make more content like this. And thank you so much again.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you all for watching. I will see you next time.
Perfect.
Bye.
Okay, we can't be